Hello dreamers, my name is Mr. Bear and I would like to apologize for the delay. I think I worked out most of the kinks in the way I make this type of video, so it should be significantly easier in the future. So anyways, Dream seems pretty cool, right? You've been playing a bunch of levels and you're like 2 or 3 levels into the tutorial and you're like, holy Toledo, there's a lot here. I'll come back to this later. Well, it's later now and school's in session. Let's make something. But what to make? The first thing I made was this somewhat angry bear face, but I didn't save the footage for that because there was a blackout in my house. It happened to be located directly in my brain mush. I wish I just would have made another one of those though, because it would have been significantly easy. Huh. Yeah. So what to make? Alright. So close your eyes and think for a minute. What to make? What to make? Think about your favorite type of tank. What? No, not a fish tank. A boom boom tank! Think about what it would be like to ride inside of a tank. Hopefully you're not claustrophobic. Anyways, while you were doing that, I just read your minds. Overwhelmingly, you guys are thinking about tanks, so I guess we'll make one of those. What, you don't want to make a tank? You say, thanks but no tanks? Well, tough cookies, that's what we're making. First things first. No, I didn't make this in 10 minutes. I was going to put up a timer, showing how long it would take for someone who was inexperienced to make something. Well, I was gonna do that. But you honestly don't want to know how long it took. Man, it took 25 hours. It's ridiculous. So that's where the delay in putting out this video came from. I didn't know how to take 25 hours of fumbling around with tools, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth forever into a tutorial on anything other than how to go insane. Second thing second, you don't want a tutorial? Well, the door's right there. It just so happens to be more like a window that will take you to a bigger window. Buckle up, Buttercup. Let's go make a tank. The first thing you need to do is go into Dream Shaping and then My Creations, followed by New Creation. Since we're using something that's going to eventually be used in a level, I picked Game Scene. That will bring you to a blank world. Before we do anything though, we're going to go into the Guides menu and we're going to turn Grid Snap on. That's going to help us control the size and angles that we will be using. You don't have to do this, but if you're new to motion controllers, it's going to look like you have a seizure when you try to move anything. Alright, now select Modes and then select Sculpting. That's what we are going to be using to make the base of our tank. Using the sculpt tools, try to make what you think a tank should look like. We do not want to include the turret here as we need that to spin later. You can have the treads as part of this design, or you can add them separately and group them later if you want to try to animate those at some point. Remember that while you're sculpting, to hit triangle to switch back and forth between the eraser tool to sculpt the shape that you want. Remember that you can rotate both the shapes and the invisible blocks to get just the exact angles and cutouts that you need. Once you're done with that, make new sculptures for your tank turret as well. You should end up with something along the lines of this. Or this if you're so inclined. Before you do anything else, you want to adjust the weight value of the chassis by selecting it with L1 and square. You want to do this so you're not spinning the entire tank around and flailing all over the place when you're aiming. Place the turret so it's directly on top of the chassis. I found having Grid Snap on will help you get it placed directly in the center where you want it to be. The next thing you want to do is get a bolt out. It is located in the Gadgets menu. The first part doesn't spin, place that on the body of the tank. The second part is the part that spins. Place that on the center of your barrel somewhere. The pink part, located in the center, is what controls how the spin and where the spin will happen. You'll need to rotate it so it spins the way that you want to. The easiest way to do this is to use Align to Grid while you're holding it and then rotate it with L2. Once it's in place, open its menu and adjust its tightness so it's not a floppy noodle when you move your tank. About 40 or 50 is where I put mine. Today we're just going to add some basic logic, and for that we need a microchip. Get one of those and stick it on the center of your turret. When I got to this point, I was originally stumped for a really long time. I could get the tank to move just fine, but when I wanted it to rotate, it was ridiculous and impossible for me. Luckily, a PSN user by the name of Trench Bucket came to the rescue and modified a piece of logic originally made by Neon the Coder to help me out. I uploaded it. It's called Trench Bucket Joystick Rotator. He also makes some other pretty cool logic, so check that out if you're interested. Go ahead and search for that and then insert it into your scene. You're going to want to take the microchip off of that block and then insert it into your other microchip. You're also going to want to make sure that your camera has your tank in view. And that's it. Now you can try to rotate and point wherever you want. Try it out. Create a new microchip and place it on the chassis of your tank. Open it up and now we're going to make this tank move. Take the control input from your other microchip and place it into this one so we don't have duplicate logic. Since raw stick inputs won't work for what we're going to do here, we need to get a splitter out of the Gadgets menu and place it into the scene. Open the control input and connect your left stick to the splitter. This will give us two different outputs now. Take out an advanced mover from the Gadgets menu and place it into the scene. Now connect both outputs from the splitter into the Z and X axes. You want to make sure that when you do that, you're holding L1, and that will change the input type to modulate. That gives you the analog controls that we need. Turn the Y speed down to 0 so you don't float off into space. Test this to make sure that your movement feels correct. After that, we're going to add a rocket rotator onto the same microchip. This will keep the orientation of the tank correct. Adjust the speed and power settings to your liking, and again, make sure to check that the arrow is pointing in the right direction. Now your tank movement should be pretty well set to go, but there is one last thing that we're going to do. Make a cannon shell with the sculpting tools and place it anywhere that you want to. It doesn't really matter what you make, mine is just a simple sphere. Open up the turret microchip, and we need to place down an emitter. Wire that up to R2 or whatever button you want to use. Click on the object you want to emit and choose the object that you made earlier. Now test it to make sure that it works. Well, that's not quite what we were going for. Make some adjustments to the speed and make sure the local space is turned on. One last thing is put in a sound that you think would be good for a cannon and then wire it up to your emitter. You find sounds by hitting the search bar on the top left. I search for explosions, but you can probably also search for cannons or kittens or whatever you're looking for. It's up to you. After you get your sound, put it into your microchip and then wire up the object, just the emitted port, from your emitter into your sound effect. That will trigger the sound effect every time your cannon fires. Once you get that set up, that's pretty much it. Go ahead and test your tank out. And that's it for today, guys. There's a lot more we need to do if you want to make this tank fun to use, but we'll cover that in a future tutorial. I'll see you next time, everyone, but until then, keep dreaming.